Today I'm doing my first update for the 31 Days of Horror Challenge I'm taking, and I'm going to go over all the horror films I've watched in the first few days of the month so far. So let's rock. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back, I'm Fuzz. So this video is the first weekly update in what will be a series of 5 total updates I do throughout the month, tracking my progress on the 31 Days of Horror Challenge. If you've been following my channel recently, you're probably aware that I've set a goal for myself this year to watch an average of at least 31 horror films in 31 days, with the real goal being to watch as many horror flicks beyond that 31 as I possibly can in October. So today I'm going to go over all the films I've watched so far in these first few days of the month. Now, admittedly, for me personally, I feel like that base goal of 31 films should be very easy for me to accomplish, because I watch a movie almost every day regardless of whether I'm doing a challenge or not. So the idea of watching 31 films in 31 days just doesn't seem like that much of a challenge to me. In fact, I'm personally looking to more like double that number, right? Because when I did this challenge last year, I was able to get about 50 films watched during the month of October. So I feel like I should be able to do at least that this year, if not more. Now, even though I've only had like 4 days of movie watching time so far this month, I do feel like I was able to cram in a whole ton of titles into those first few days. I've actually got like 14 titles to talk about today. I was originally going to pair up this video with some other kind of ranking list or recommendation list, but after chewing on it a bit, I decided it would be better to keep these weekly updates as their own dedicated videos. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get right into this list and let me show you what I've been watching. Okay, so starting off with October 1st, I knew I wanted to kick off the month with some kind of classic, so ultimately I did decide to watch the new 4K restoration of The Exorcist. Now, I gotta say, guys, if you haven't seen this yet, the transfer looks fantastic. They really did a good job with the restoration on this one, and I was super pleased with the way it came out. I watched the theatrical version this time. I figured I'd maybe watch the director's cut next year when I watch this again. But this time around, I just stuck with the theatrical version, so I was really happy with how this came out. By the way, as a quick little side note here, one of the complaints that a lot of people have about this new release is that the special features, like the archival making of documentary and whatnot, none of that is included on any of the discs in here. However, what I discovered is that if you redeem the digital code, the Movies Anywhere digital code, you actually do get all those archival special features included for streaming. You just don't get them on disc. But you can access all those archival special features. And those special features include various interviews and featurettes, and of course the definitive 1998 hour and 17-minute making of documentary, which is absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend watching to anyone out there who's never seen it. So make sure you hang on to that digital code and redeem it, because all those special features that many of us are pining after and many of us felt should have been included on the disc actually are available to watch via streaming. Anyway, I had an absolute blast watching this. It looks stunning, and it was the perfect way to kick off spooky season in the month of October. Also on day one, I watched Dario Argento's first film, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Excellent film. Now, I don't want to say too much about this today because I do have a Dario Argento top 10 list video coming in the next day or two, so make sure you look out for that. But I will just say this is the film that really kicked everything off for Dario Argento. This is the film that really set the standard for the giallo subgenre and kind of provided a roadmap, a template, if you will, that many, many other directors would follow in the 70s and 80s. So yeah, this is a classic. Absolutely love this one, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and I will be talking more about it in my Dario Argento video. So like I said, keep an eye out for that. Next up, still on day one here, it was a first-time viewing for me of an absolute classic, and that is Evil Dead 2. Talking about the second one here, I'd never seen this. prior to, a few days ago. I figured it was about time. Now, I think I bought this Blu-ray probably, I think, about a year and a half ago. And when I got it, I watched the first one. I had never seen at that time the first Evil Dead either. I'd never seen any of them. And that's why I got this Blu-ray. I figured it'd be a good way to kind of kick things into gear with the first two. But yeah, so I watched the first Evil Dead, I think about a year and a half ago. And it was okay. I liked it. Then I popped in Evil Dead 2 back then at the time. And I was totally confused by the whole requel thing. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Didn't we see this in the last film? And it's like, I didn't know what was going on. So I, of course, did a little research on it, found out what the deal was with this second film. But I just couldn't get into it at the time. I guess I must not have been in the right headspace for it. But I decided to give it another try this last weekend. And I gotta say, I actually really liked Evil Dead 2 quite a bit. In fact, I liked it a lot more than the first one. It was more my speed. It was more my style. I liked the more lighthearted nature of Evil Dead 2 compared to Evil Dead 1. So yeah, Evil Dead 2, first time watch for me. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I finally got around to watching it after all these years. So yeah, Evil Dead 2. And the last film I watched on October 1st would be Night of the Creeps, little Tom Atkins action. Tom Atkins is awesome in this. Another first-time viewing for me. I had never seen this one, and I absolutely had a blast with this one. This is so much fun. It's a great little creature flick and thoroughly entertaining all the way through. So if any of you have never seen this one, I'd recommend it. Check it out. It was perfect for kicking off the month. Next up, moving on to October 2nd, day 2. The first film I watched that day was Prom Night, another classic. Of course, I'd seen this one before, but this was my first time seeing the Synapse Films Blu-ray restoration. And I gotta say, it looked really good for a Blu-ray. I wasn't expecting this film to look quite as good as it did, but I shouldn't have been surprised, right? Because Synapse Films does great work, and this was no exception. So anyway, yeah, it's a classic film. Not a whole lot to say about it. It's just a fun ride. It's not the greatest horror film of all time, but it definitely is very serviceable for the spooky season vibe. I only saw it myself for the first time last year, but I did like it enough to want to pick it up on Blu-ray. And once I saw that Synapse Films had done a restoration of it, that kind of piqued my interest even more, just because they do such great work over there. So, next up, also on October 2nd, I watched Firestarter from 1984. Got a little Drew Barrymore action here, David Keith, George C. Scott, who plays such a scumbag in this, by the way. Yeah, great film. Interestingly enough, with this film, I had not actually seen it since the 80s. It had been a long, long time. So I was curious as to what I was going to think of it, seeing it all these years later. I was a big fan of the book Firestarter. It was, I'm not a big fiction reader. I don't read a lot of fiction books, but there were a few Stephen King books I read back when I was young or when this came out. And Firestarter was one of those stories where I got really, really into the book. I was so into the story. And then I felt like it wasn't too long after I finished reading the book that this movie came out. And I can remember being so excited to see this movie when it first came out because I had just finished reading the book and wanted to see how they brought it to life on screen. Now, at the time, in the 80s, I remember being a little bit disappointed by the movie because I had just read the book. So obviously, they weren't going to be able to get everything in the movie that was in the book, as is always the case with these situations. So I think at the time I was probably a little bit disappointed by this movie. But fast forward to now, where I'm watching this almost 40 years later, and I enjoyed it quite a bit more than I did at the time. So if you've never seen Firestarter, it's a fun ride. The finale of the movie is awesome, where she just cuts loose. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it. So if you're a big fan of Stephen King and you've never checked out this adaptation, I would definitely give it a try. And the last film I watched on October 2nd was House of the Devil from 2009, Ty West film. Wow, what a great film. I really enjoyed that one. I had heard good things about it. Now, this one I don't own on physical media, but after watching it this weekend, I definitely plan to own it in the future. The film is kind of a throwback to old school slow burn horror, and it's very much a slow burn, but it's so compelling. It keeps you engaged the whole way through. And there are some great payoffs later on in the film. So I would highly recommend this one. By the way, this film was actually shot on 16 millimeter, which I think really plays into the overall aesthetic of the film really well. It gives it that kind of slightly gritty throwback exploitation vibe that I think really harkens back to the days of old school like John Carpenter films or other old school horror directors. It's not one I own on physical media yet. I wanted to try before I buy, which is why I streamed it this first time. But after seeing it, I like the film so much that I definitely plan on picking it up on physical media at some point. So if you've never seen House of the Devil, it's one I would definitely recommend checking out for any horror fan, especially if you're a fan of really engaging, slow burn type horror. This is the film for you. Okay, moving on to October 3rd. The first film I watched was the new 4K restoration of The Mist. A little more Stephen King action here. This is a great film with just some fantastic atmosphere to it. And I do think the 4K came out really good. I thought the transfer, the restoration looks really good. Very solid, no complaints at all on this restoration. Although I will say one thing about the CGI. The CGI maybe doesn't hold up as well as we would like it to. There are definitely some problems with the CGI. It looks pretty cartoonish. I have heard from other reviewers out there that if you watch the black and white version, which is also included in this, that it kind of masks the problems with the CGI a little bit better, and that the CGI issues aren't quite as glaring. But aside from that, I really enjoyed this. The transfer looked great, and if you've never seen this one, it's got one hell of an ending that really sticks with you, which I, of course, will not spoil. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed The Mist. So if you haven't checked out the new 4K restoration, you might want to consider picking it up at some point. Also on October 3rd, I had to go with another absolute classic, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. Yeah, I just had to do it, right? Well, I'm in the process of making my way through the George Romero Living Dead films. Well, everything except Diary of the Dead, but all the others I would like to be able to try and watch this month. And so I had to kick it off with this classic, of course. I absolutely love Dwayne Jones in this. His performance on this was just so good and so iconic that you just can't go wrong with something like this. And I'll tell you, the other thing I really like about this, one of my favorite things about this movie are the newscasts that happen throughout the movie. They start out on radio, of course, and so you hear them trying to figure out what's going on with this zombie apocalypse situation as the whole thing is just starting to unfold. And then eventually they get a TV hooked up, and then you actually see the TV newscasts. And for me, those are the best part of the whole film. Those TV newscasts are awesome as we see the news anchors try to kind of come to terms with what's going on, try to figure out what's going on here. I've always found that just really interesting, the newscast aspect of this. And when Tom Savini and George Romero got together to do a remake in, what was it, 1990, I think it was, that was the one thing that I felt was really missing from that remake, because I really do like the remake of this quite a bit. Almost as much as the original, but the reason I don't like it as much is because the original has those television newscasts, and to me that just really makes the film. So yeah, just classic stuff. Night of the Living Dead in 4K from Criterion here. Yeah, you can't go wrong with something like this. And the last film I watched on October 3rd was Child's Play from 1988. This is another one I don't own. In fact, I resisted watching this film for many years. I just thought it looked stupid, to be honest. I really did. I was like, it's a fucking doll. Like, how menacing can that be, right? Well, I found out watching it, and I do have to say, I did like the film more than I thought I would. I still don't know if I could put Child's Play up as high as some people do in their horror franchise rankings overall, but I did find myself fairly entertained by the film. And of course, Brad Dourif, he does a great job. So yeah, this was a first-time watch for me. Never saw Child's Play before. So finally, I got it under my belt. So yeah, Child's Play, 1988. I don't know if I'm even going to buy this on physical media. I think streaming it might have just been enough for me to see. But my perspective on that could change over time, as often happens with the horror genre for me. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you can be alerted when I'm posting videos you might be interested in. And also don't forget to like the videos as well. It really helps with the channel's visibility out there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support out there. Okay, moving on to October 4th, we've got Trilogy of Terror, a little Karen Black action from 1975. Pardon the reflection as usual. This is a great little made-for-TV gem and don't let the made-for-TV designation fool you. This thing actually has some legitimately creepy and spooky stuff in it, and I would highly recommend this. Another good thing about this film is it's real short. It's only like 72 minutes, right? So you can get in and out quick, which when you're trying to watch a large volume of movies during the month of October, it helps to be able to slip a few in that don't take up very much of your time. But this is a really fun movie. Karen Black just did an awesome job with this. So yeah, if you've never seen Trilogy of Terror, I'd definitely recommend it. The next one I watched on October 4th was another classic, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first film. And I don't know what I can really say about that. I had to get it in at some point during the month, so I was in the mood last night, so I checked it out. Got some classic stuff in there with Johnny Depp and Heather Langenkamp. So yeah, like I said, I don't know how much you can really say about this. We all know what Nightmare on Elm Street is, and I was in the mood to watch it last night, so I popped it in. So yeah, Nightmare. And then finally on October 4th, I finished things off with a more contemporary film. That would be You're Next from 2011. This is a pretty good film. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a home invasion, badass final girl that actually has some skills. So that alone is worth a watch just to see this final girl operate the way she does. She's awesome. There are a few twists in this movie, but once the first key piece of information was revealed, I pretty much had the rest of the movie figured out from that point forward. But it was still very entertaining, and I did very much enjoy it. It is a pretty brutal movie. It definitely has some more contemporary gore in it, so keep that in mind. But I did have a lot of fun with this one, and I would recommend it to anyone who's looking for a good home invasion type story with a few little twists. So that's about it for everything I've watched so far this month, at least in the first 4 days. I will be doing another update video next Wednesday and every Wednesday after that in October. So in summing up, I'd say so far, I'm easily on track to meet or surpass the goals that I've set for myself in this challenge. And I'll dig into those numbers a little deeper in next week's update once we've had a chance to accumulate a few more days in the month. Now, I don't expect to be able to keep up this pace the entire month. I knew going into the month that I was going to front load the first few days with a whole bunch of movies, anticipating that there were going to be days where I wouldn't have as much time for movie watching. So I watched a whole bunch up front deliberately to help my average for the month. If any of you are also doing this challenge at home or some variation of it, make sure you drop me a comment below and let me know what movies you've been watching and how the challenge is going for you so far. Or if you happen to have your own YouTube channel and you're doing your own challenge update videos, make sure you tag me in those videos so I can check them out and see what you guys are watching as well. Don't forget to like the videos, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate your support on this channel, and I'll see you soon.